Business is made possible by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to the People's Business. This Sunday, we will be looking at the season of emancipation, commemorate and celebrate. And to tell us exactly how we will be doing those two things, I have three special guests with me this evening. Mr. Rodney Grant, the Program Advisor with the Office of Reparations and Economic Enfranchisement. Jennifer Seeley, one of the founders and Artistic Director of Dancin Africa. Peter Skeete, who's the president of the Haynesville Youth Club, and Corey Bradshaw, the director of music with the Israel Lovell Foundation. I want to welcome all of you to our discussion this evening. I also want to welcome you, our viewers, for what should be an exciting discussion. We'll take a break and be back with you. We're back with the People's Business. We're talking about commemorating and celebrating. And we'll ask the panelists exactly how we're going to do that during this season of emancipation. Now, usually, I want to start with you first, Rodney. Usually we have a situation where we have Emancipation Day and we have Kadooment Day. However, we're now having an entire season. What was the thinking behind it?
Well, thank you, Wendy, and thank you for having us this evening. And pleasant good night to all. Um, Usually, the government wanted to have a longer season for emancipation this year because, as you rightly said, usually we only celebrate on that one day. And we also wanted to drive home the important point that the season of that the crop over of itself, our crop over celebrations actually fall within the season of emancipation. The season of emancipation is the season in which crop over and everything else that happens in between there falls. So we, in order to begin to get that idea across, we felt it was necessary to have an entire season that starts on April the 14th, which is the celebration of the 1816 rebellion, Buster Rebellion, and finishes on August the 30th, which is the day of national significance. So we have a whole set of activities that runs right through the ambit, and also within there we also took time out to celebrate the month of June, which is the Intangible Cultural Heritage Month. And we want this to become a feature every year so that Barbadians get accustomed because what we would be doing is we would for sure pulling out some key things that happened this year, some key wins, and make sure that we also make them part of that 52-year calendar of events that the government also want to have rolled out. So
Okay.
there are many reasons why we want to have this long expanded season of emancipation.
If I can go to the cultural practitioners who are with us, when you hear about commemorating and celebrating, could you outline for me what are some of the key things that your individual entities will be involved with during the season? And I'll begin with you, Jennifer.
Well, so far, good night. I want to say thanks for having me on the program. It is interesting to note that Dance in Africa, 30 years old this year, um, our celebration obviously started in April and goes until next April. So we are in the season of emancipation, but then we're also in the season of celebrating who we are as a group. Um, we have quite a number of things that we will be celebrating and bringing a major awareness to the public of Barbados. We are expected to be involved in a launch of the intangible cultural heritage. We also know that we are expected as well to be associated with the Jackie Opal celebration. And of course, we are again involved in Quapover, which is a celebration of itself. And as we go down to Emancipation Day, we are going to be celebrating, commemorating what our forefathers would have experienced. We are going to be looking at showcasing one or two of our choreographies that speak to just that.
Okay. And what about you, Peter? What's Haynesville going to be doing during this season?
Well, thank you very much for having us, and I'm delighted to be in such esteemed company, the likes of Rodney from Prime Minister's office, but more so Pinelands and Miss Celia, as well as Corey from Israel Level Foundation and Dance in Africa, respectively. Well, we've been participating already. We did some work there at the Emancipation Roots Experience Show recently at Golden Square. We did a very outstanding collaboration with the Finance Creative Workshop at the very outstanding venue at the Rock Hall, Freedom Village. And we are expected to be part and parcel of the opening gala for the Crossover Festival, which, as you were saying, fits ideally into the Emancipation season, along with the Crossover Festival. So we are very much delighted to be part and parcel of the activity. Of course, our Haynesville in itself is a group that was established in 2006, and we promote that traditional African culture and heritage, which lends itself ideally to the season of emancipation. So we are very much involved. We are very much looking forward to our continuous participation in the season and whatever else there is that we can bring joy and recognition to the people of our community, and by extension, the Haynesville Youth Club.
Okay, and you finally, Corey, but not last, how is Israel Lovell going to be commemorating and celebrating in this season?
Well, good evening and good evening to the panel as well. Thank you for having us on the People's Business tonight. The Israel Lover Foundation would be, well, we started with the launch on the 14th of April. We were part of the launch for the season of emancipation. Over the years, the Israel Lover Foundation, as you know, the name of the foundation is after Israel Lovell, who was a Pan-Africanist and an activist for the working class people in Barbados. And every July 26th, that is one day that we always commemorate, and that falls within the season of emancipation. Every July 26th, we will go and we will pay homage to Clement Payne and also Israel Lovell. We will travel to St. George Parish Church, where Israel was actually interned, and we would actually, give blessings to him for what he would have contributed to the Barbadian landscape. Every August 1st, without a doubt, Israel Lovell Foundation is always present at Buster statue to make sure that we pay homage to our ancestors and to the freedom fighter Bussa, who would have been instrumental in the uprising and the revolt back in on April 14th, 1816. So without a doubt, those are the things that we will be participating in, and obviously any other activity that we will be called upon to actually give or music, dance, whatever, we will be there.
Okay, if I can come back to you again, Rodney, in terms of the whole idea of commemorating and celebrating, we the public come out and watch all of these groups whose names basically are now household words because we've been seeing you for that long. But in the viewing, are we really and truly learning? Are we getting the cultural lessons?
Well, everyone may not get it because people take in knowledge in different formats. Some people take it by viewing stuff, some people take it by reading, by listening. And what is important is that we're consistent in our messaging. And I mean, we have to take our hats off to organizations like Haynesville, Dancin Africa, Israel Lovell, and Pinelands, who have stood in the vanguard of pushing consciousness, a certain level of consciousness, and in terms of the retentions or Afrocentric retentions in terms of the performing arts. Because most of the times these are the people that are overlooked. And so that what is really important is that as Jennifer said just now, Dance in Africa is 30 years. Pinus is 42 or 44. I can't remember. I know Peter probably have a few under his belt as well as Israel Lovell, and they have well over 30 years. And so this collectively, these have been consistently sending messages. As I said, everybody may not get it, but the thing is to keep at it, to keep the consistency, and every opportunity you get to step up the messaging.
Do you feel, Jennifer, that with the longevity of the season now, that our people, especially our younger ones, will take home those culture lessons and understand what our ancestors did and how we got here?
That is very, very possible. I think we began the season of Emancipation. If I cannot remember the date, but I know that there was a session of storytelling. Pardon me if I'm incorrect. And
No,
that
it was
would have
at
been
Farley Hill.
happening at
Yes.
Farley Hill.
Yes.
Okay. And so far I went to Roots Experience at Golden Square, which I must say is an excellent venue. It's an excellent venue, and we cannot underscore that most of the performances held there are free to the public. So you get people from all sorts of life coming out. Even the name, because I had to be here, I told myself, don't even bother to go to Golden Square this evening where there was a heritage auction and showcase and so. But people are coming out, and our grassroots people, they are coming out. They're dressing to suit the occasion. They are being involved. Sometimes there is passive involvement. At another time, people are very, very much involved. We have to meet people exactly where they are at. And by commemorating these things, by being involved in these things, not at the level necessarily of performance, but as a member of the audience, there is quite a lot to learn. And I find that people are open, they're ready, and as Rodney says, we have got to provide the experiences and the opportunities for people to appreciate, for people to understand, for people to be made aware and to develop that consciousness. And I believe that the extension of the emancipation period would allow for that to happen. People are indeed coming out and they're interested.
Okay, if I can get you to weigh in here quickly before we go to break, Corey. Do you find enough people are being immersed in what the season offers and they understand fully?
Honestly, I don't think that people understand fully. And I don't blame them for not understanding. I think that we need to now educate people about the season of emancipation. Some persons would tell you that they thought that emancipation was only one day, which was August 1st. It is good now to see that the season is extended from the day of the revolt down, I think, down to past, past Marcus Garvey's birthday. That is fantastic. But I think that a level of sensitization needs to take place in terms of the general public, so that the general public understand, not just know that they have activities, but understand about emancipation, about the season of emancipation.
Okay.
It must start just like we have Black History Month in terms of February in the schools. I think that we need to take the season of emancipation as well into the schools. I do not know how far it has gone into the schools. I can't speak to that, but I believe that it needs to go there definitely, to make sure that the youth actually will be taking it up and getting to understand, because everything goes as it goes. You must get the youth involved. If not,
Okay.
it will die eventually.
Okay, we have to go to commercial break, but when we return, we'll be taking calls from our viewers, 228-5562, 228-5563, as we discuss how we will commemorate and celebrate the season of emancipation. We'll be back after the break. And we're back with the People's Business. We're talking with Rodney Grant, Jennifer Seeley, Peter Skeete, and Corey Bradshaw, all cultural practitioners in their own right. Now, we will throw to the phone lines now this evening. Hello and welcome to People's Business.
Yeah, good night, Wendy, to you and your esteemed panel. It's ironic that Miss City mentioned roots. I wonder why roots wasn't part of the whole emancipation picture, since we running it for such a long time. And we're already talking about emancipating, to get the children and school and, what is really emancipation all about. Why that was a part of the series on,
Oh, you mean the actual, TV, the serial program Roots. Okay, okay. I have you now. Okay. I don't know, maybe that's something that your office could take up through, say, maybe GIS and do a mobile cinema. What do you think about that, Rodney? I believe you're muted, Rodney.
Oh, it's
Okay.
not showing that it's muted.
Oh, but I couldn't hear you. So go ahead now. Yes.
Right. So sorry. So I was saying that actually I believe that the aspect of film in the season is being taken care of by the National Library Service. So you realize they focus on things. They have the mobile library that moves around. I can't say that they'll specifically be showing the Roots film, but I know that they have been focusing on the aspect of film and literacy in terms of the poetry and different things in terms of the season of emancipation. But it's something to think about going forward. Like I said, this is the start of the extended season. It's something that we would I definitely want to improve on going forward. We will look at the things that we want to keep. We will look at those things that we want to discard. We also look at those things we want to improve on. So definitely be open to all suggestions. And I heard Corey just now about going into the schools, and definitely we see how we can improve on the season next year. This is the beginning of a journey.
But even if we don't go in with a formal program, Rodney, some of your groups have some youthful membership, like yours, Peter.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
your individuals there, your drummers, aren't yet 25, and there's nothing wrong with sharing that message youth to youth. Young people tend to listen to their peers more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, clearly. And I mean, the conversation has to go past the level of awareness and how we use this culture, how we use these practices, how we use the performing arts and all that's involved in it to shape the minds and lives of young people. How are we going to ensure that we allow our young people to see our African heritage as an alternative to what we are currently seeing now in terms of their quest for the North American culture? How are we going to use our performing artists and as they perform to ensure that we are able to provide for them to improve their livelihoods, to keep our culture in such a way that we keep our young people away from the negative influences and help to channel these positive cultures and practices for them to stay away from deviant and antisocial behavior. I think that in itself is another conversation that we must have as far as the whole season of emancipation is concerned. It cannot only be a situation where we're just going and performing and we're creating awareness about the whole period of emancipation, but we must be able to provide activities and wholesome alternatives for our young people to put them on a path of development. And that is what we've been doing within our own Haynesville space in trying to create and to participate in these activities that help to build cohesiveness, awareness, and channel our young people in a positive direction, and also to support them holistically as well.
I'm glad you raised the issue of that and the cultural penetration and infiltration, right? But then there's something that comes up and stops them and blocks them, even when they're trying. That of a hairstyle. You still have institutions that frown on the idea of wearing braids, of boys having their hair plaited, etc. And I can use my own case in point. My son has long hair. He applied for a job. He was told he would get it. Now, he's overqualified for the job, but he was told he would get it if he was willing to cut his hair. He called me and said, "Mommy, what should I do?" I said, "Nothing. Continue to run your own business." How does the hair impact the learning?
But it's unfortunate,
Sorry.
that we have adopted as a society whole scale. Don't forget, we came out of emancipation, but we didn't change much. We adopted the educational system, we adopted the religion, we adopted the socialization of our enslavers, and we didn't change a lot of these things. Our very thinking, the way how we fashion our society, is based off of all these old foundational things that were left in place for us. So, I mean, and this is almost 300 years later. And as you said, we're still fighting to erase these simple things like a hairstyle and stuff. So, this journey is a long journey. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of soldiers on the ground in many different corners of society working at this thing. 'Cause it's not something that's just going to go away.
Okay, we have a call. Welcome to the program.
Hello, yes. How are you doing?
I'm well, and you?
I'm good. I want to say a special good evening to your esteemed panel. I have two questions. One, I want to know if the panel would be so minded as to push in their own corners the whole idea of African studies as part of the syllabus, so that when we get to emancipation, it's more relevant. I don't think that the history syllabus as it stands, except for the Caribbean studies, which is at the sixth form level, really is relevant as it stands right now. That's one. Secondly, years ago in the 80s, you had community development officers and practitioners from the NCF who would go and have regular workshops in communities.
Yep.
I think that we need to go back to that. That's how things like Pinelands came about. And I'm saying we need to get that back on the ground, where we re-energize our base, our grassroots base, where you had folk singing a folk group in nearly every corner of Barbados. Not necessarily every parish, but you had one in different corridors. You had a theatre group in every corridor. You had dance troops in every corner.
Yep.
You had landship movement in every corner. How does the panel feel about that? Let us go back there so that when we get to this season we will come to support our landship movement that is coming down, our dance group. So everybody had its own following. I think we need to get back to the roots, both at the educational level and here at this one.
Okay, caller, your questions were so packed, we have to go to break. But when we come back, Jennifer, I'll let you take the first one as a former educator, and then I'll go to Corey and Mr. Skeete. We'll be back after the break. And we're back. Now, I'm going to come straight to you, Jennifer. Should African studies be part of the curricula?
As far as I know, I can only speak for the primary school. And I mean, I've been away from school now for 6 years, but I had a close association with the social studies syllabus, having been a former chairman of that syllabus. And I know definitely that there was a component of that syllabus that spoke to Africa, a vast continent. And then we also had, I was at the ministry when I'm talking curriculum, so it is already there in the syllabus, Africa, a vast continent. But there's also scope in your curriculum for things like the season of emancipation to be taught, for Barbadian children to be taught about the heritage, for Barbadian children to understand the people came, and the people who came, if the Africans came out of slavery. So that is all part of the syllabus the curriculum that is taught at primary schools. I don't know how much of it is happening now. I was in the Ministry of Education when the first African awareness celebration was done. I also know that things are a lot different now since, but we also had something called the project method. And the project method was a way of learning. And it was very much associated with the wider curriculum, but it actually sat in the seat of social studies. So there is scope for all of these things to be taught from the nursery school. And I can tell you, schools, nursery and infants, those teachers are very willing and they engage their children in having activities that mirror what's going on in the society.
Okay.
So that is what I would say it is there. So we just have to act on it.
Okay. Now I want to go to get the answer to his second question quickly. And Peter, I'm going to come to you because you are a community officer, and he was talking about having them go into the public more to educate about our movements like landship and tuck ban and those things. Is there still scope for that?
Yes, well, I think there's efforts. I work in the Ministry of Youth, as you know, and that is how our own Haynesville Youth Club was established out of a series of programs and projects that was sponsored by the Ministry of Youth, and similar programs are being conducted at other communities. I know only recently here in Ellerton, St. George, they've started a wonderful program up there with tap band drumming and still walking. So it's not to say that these efforts are no longer part and parcel of the Barbadian landscape. It is just that they need to be intensified. And Rodney always made the point. Pinelands themselves have been doing a lot of that community outreach as well. We've learned a lot from them. As a matter of fact, you can say that in all fairness, we've adopted the Pinelands model to the extent that we are now part and parcel of the performing landscape of Barbados, and there are similar efforts that are being done through other communities. But what is required is strong leadership that ensures sustainability, leadership that ensures that the efforts of government is matched by those at the community level. So
Okay.
we are all for that, and long may these activities continue. And as I said, there's significant efforts on the way to ensure that a lot of the practices that we held so dearly are very much back into the forefront of communities in this country.
Okay, because I know for sure the NCF has restarted training in folk, and they're actually doing it at the zonal level. We have another caller. Hello and welcome to the program.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I am inquiring, what has happened to the service of sounds, which were all part of Barbados heritage community life. I'm certain that people like Jennifer and people like Mr. Rodney, who they need a lot of help now because they think they have won the garment in terms of community life in Barbados. So I think if there are any young groups in Barbados who are at least adopting community, like Jennifer said, there is the place that there in Fairtrade Street that's open.
Okay. I think I'll let you take this one, Corey, because I know you're a man of song as well. So, service of song, is that something that Israel Lovell, has given any thought to?
Well, Israel Lovell Foundation actually had a program that used to call Service of Songs, where the senior citizens arm of the foundation actually used to put on this Service of Songs and used to encourage the youth arm of the organization to actually participate. And I did participate at numerous Service of Songs put on by the Israel Lovell Foundation. I am not certain. The gentleman just said that both Rodney and Miss Seeley was out for a very long time. I am now getting out of the blocks, although I was part of the foundation from 1999, 2000. I'm still now getting out the blocks. So I am not certain exactly what he's referring to in terms of service of song across the island. But I could tell you that it was always packed. Persons always enjoy themselves in terms of the service of song, and if it's something that could be mirrored across the landscape of Barbados and the numerous communities, I believe that it would be a good addition to the cultural landscape.
Okay, now remember we started bringing things together when the ministry started all of the parish endeavors, but then came COVID. So when we come back, we'll talk about how we as communities can find other ways and means to strengthen ourselves culturally, even when things like COVID tend to block us out. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the People's Business. Our topic, Season of Emancipation, Commemorate and Celebrate. With me, I have Jennifer Seeley, Rodney Grant, Peter Skeete, and Corey Bradshaw. Before we went off to the break, we had a caller asking about the service of song. Now, Jennifer, you would be familiar with this. Your mother would have also have been familiar with it too. You know, is there really room and scope for things like that to be brought back into the cultural landscape? Or have we matured a little too much in some areas?
To be honest, Wendy, I have never participated in a service. My mom would know more about it than I would, but I'm not sure. The service of song may have been the bringing together of major choirs within a community. I get the impression that that is what it was. I was a member of a folk singing group, St. John Folk Singing Group, but I actually never did a service of song. I heard about it as a child that so and so would have been having a service of song by them. And I would have to say, get the impression that choirs or singing groups would have been coming from various communities to kind of partake in something like that collectively.
Okay.
But there's scope for it. There is scope for it in this day and age. Um, I think the NCF, as we said, they've started um, rebuilding the efforts of having folk singing in communities, and the community choirs in much the same way can come together and get involved in something such as that. For
Okay.
Dancin Africa, we are looking to have a singing arm of the group. I don't want to restrict it to just folk singing, but a singing arm of the group. That's one of our goals for this year.
Okay, now that's interesting to see you transition from the dance and the choreography, which we know oh so well, you know, and
And the
bring
theater.
songs, yes, and bring that into it. Now, Rodney, in terms of the things that are intrinsically Barbadian, parts of our heritage, our tukban, our landship, um, Mother Sally, steel donkey, those kinds of things. You really only tend to get to see them when it's crop over or some other specific thing within the cultural calendar, or if we happen to go to a dinner show at a hotel. Is it time we move away from only doing this piecemeal approach to our culture?
No, I could agree with you more, Wendy. But let me just divert a bit and come right back to your question. I want to just speak to the service of song issue and to share that, you know, it was this competitive thing that was done across communities. Jennifer was right. And they focus on the Christian hymns. But the good thing is, and was that each choir had like a speechifier or a band leader who would come and introduce the band, so that the service of songs and the speechifier kind of went together. And this is where the speechifier got the chance to come out and prolifically introduce his particular choir. You know, so it was this kind of competitive thing among communities. And, you know, these are the things that we can bring back and re-energize. It also gives the older generation something to look forward to. So just wanted to introduce that. I couldn't agree with you more that we can treat culture seasonally. And that's what we have been doing basically a lot. We treat it seasonally. Culture is that intrinsic thing that is you. It is part of you, something you do every day. It's like going down the road and eating the doubles if you're a Trini, or some cocoa and flying fish on a Saturday if you're a Bajan, and ackee and saltfish. You know, so it is you. It is what forms part of your everyday life. And you know, we kind of move away from a lot of these things where we now treat them as performances and we treat them as just seasonal things because and I think the point was made earlier, we've lost the historical connection and we've lost the meaning to a lot of these things. And you know, culture is one of those things that help you to form communities, that to get a greater understanding of who you are. And you know, and Peter rightly made the point. I mean, and when you get to that point, that point of understanding is how you can then use the culture in a way of reframing communities, reframing individuals, how they see themselves, how they see each other. And I mean, again, you know, it seems like everything I say is going to be a long journey, but it's a long way back to where we would like to get to. But we got to pick at it piece by piece. But I can agree with you more. We cannot treat culture and we should not treat it as a seasonal thing. It's not a seasonal thing. It should be intrinsically part of you and who you are. Identity precedes participation. I always say.
Of course.
It is
Of
true.
course.
Yeah, and we have to remember that the longest journey starts with the first step. And if we have people like Corey, who's still young and willing to make that step, you know, we can get him to encourage a lot of others along the way.
I agree, because the gentleman just now was seeming to imply that me and Jennifer, we've run the route and we've gone over into the old thing. Jennifer, I don't know about you.
I am not.
But
I am not.
He was trying to put you in the waiting room, Rodney.
I would say that we are always learning from our elders, and we must learn from our elders so that we could teach, and others can learn from us. So the elders always have something to contribute, and when they contribute, we listen. I listen, and I try to transcend that knowledge to the ones that I teach. And we at the Israel Lovell Foundation do have a lot of youth in terms of, and a lot of young men, young boys, young men. We have a lot of young girls who are dancing. The girls tend to gravitate towards dance, and the guys tend to gravitate towards the music and the drumming aspect of the group. And I know the caller before had, you know, touched about COVID and how it had impacted on the organizations probably, and how we, in terms of, could be resilient in the future in terms of getting our message out there in terms of culture. I found that COVID did lend a blow to the foundation, the Israel Lovell Foundation. I believe it would have been the same across the board in terms of Haynesville and Pinelands and also Dancin Africa. It was a blow. It was a significant blow because we didn't have that continuous engagement in terms of the youth. And I think that is something that's very important. Youth, in my opinion, all they need is someone to listen. And this is something that I realized going through my classes. You need someone to listen. And if you can listen to them, find out what the issues are that they're having, and try to find solutions to those issues. You may not find solutions to all. And as my leaders always say, sometimes you can't save all. If you save one, you would have done a human service. And just try to save as many as you can. And I found that COVID uh, was a little give a little setback in terms of the engagement, the face-to-face engagement. And believe me, face-to-face is probably the better tool in terms of dealing with some persons in the community. When you're in front of them and you're trying to, guide them in the right direction, being in front of them means a lot. So COVID was a serious blow to the organization, and it is something that needs to be discussed. I don't know if the elders on the panel will be able to give any guidance, but it's something that needs to be discussed for the future in case that something like this happens again, that setback is not as grave as it was during the past 2 years.
Okay. Now, Rodney, I want to look quickly at some of the other elements of culture that we have missed out on a little bit along the way. We have the dancers, we have the drummers, we have the dramatists here. But what about that ability we once had to be able to make up a limerick on the spot? Where is spoken word? Where is poetry falling in within the exactly? Where is it going to be in this season of emancipation? How can we use it to celebrate and commemorate?
Actually, I think one of the earlier activities within the season was a poetry night done at the Golden Square. But I can agree with you more. And as I reflect too on the same service of songs, where are the speechifiers? Where are the orators? You know, I've never missed, well, as far as I can remember, a pick of the crop, because those are the orators. You can beat the social commentary. You go back to days at West Indian politician and I want a plantation and these type of calypsos that tell a story. And so you can be storytellers in any society. In fact, in the African society, it was the storytellers and the orators. It was these people that kept the traditions alive because they did it, passed it on word of mouth. A lot of stuff wasn't written until, and a lot of this stuff you sat down and you learned, you heard the stories, you were told the folk tales, and you pass it on from generation to generation. So I can agree with you more, but we are working on it. If I could switch my hand a little bit, in terms of what we are doing in intangible cultural heritage. We are looking to bring, to unearth a lot of these things because the oral history is a big part of the intangible cultural heritage. And in fact, intangible cultural heritage holds all of the richness of a country and its people. And these are the things that we are looking to unearth, to document, and make sure we have these things not only for posterity, but so that organizations can use them to enrich the cultural products so that people can just use them for general knowledge. And so that over time we can rebuild a lot of these practices that we had that are still useful for building out a society and for building out an economy. Because we just have to find a way to contemporize these things, to look at landship, how we can contemporize it for this present generation. A lot of the young people may not want to look at it in the way it was done before. How can we modernize it without it not losing a lot of its elements, but in a way that it's tasteful for this present generation? And in a lot of ways, this is what ICH is about. It's about traditional culture, keeping those cultures alive for this generation and future generations.
Okay, on that note, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we'll talk about some of the other things to come up in the season of emancipation as we work our way toward the crop over celebration. We'll be back. And we're back with the People's Business talking season of emancipation. Now, Rodney, we don't have a lot of time left for the evening, but what are some of the main things left on the calendar that you think Barbadians should be a part of?
Okay, well, we have July the 18th, which is Nelson Mandela Day. And we are looking to bring a prominent person from South Africa to deliver that lecture. So we're still working on it, so I can't give any more information at this time. So that's July the 18th. Then we also have August. We go into August. We begin August the 1st, which is the day, the actual Emancipation Day. We have something called the Watch Night, where we want to encourage all the churches across Barbados to ring the bells and stuff. Actually, Watch Night was that night of anticipation of the next day. So it really should start from midnight the day before and go into Emancipation Day. It was that day when the slaves were preparing and watching for the actual Emancipation Declaration. Then on August the 17th, if my mind serves me right, we have Marcus Garvey Day. Then on the 23rd, we have the International Day for the Commemoration of the Abolition of the Slave Trade. And then we finish the season on August the 27th, which is the day of African Significance, celebration of Africa. Oh, I forgot in between there, July the 26th, which is the National Day for Concert, which is normally celebrated. I think we want to do that this year at the Golden Square. As Jennifer said, we want to keep a lot of these things free to encourage people to come out as much as possible. Yeah, so I think those are the key things that if my memory could serve me right,
Okay.
that we will still have on the table. Yeah.
Okay, now if I can have the other panelists just give me some final words in terms of what the season means for you and the commemoration and celebration, whether to your organization, yourself personally, or to the public at large. I'll start with you, Jennifer.
This is a season in which, for me, it is very reflective. We reflect on the struggle, we reflect on the sacrifice, we also reflect on the resilience. It's a serious season for that. And then we think in terms of the commemoration and the celebration. And I would hope that it is not lost on our people. I just want to interject in a final statement here. As I sat here, I began to think of the fact that there are many, many people in powerful positions. There may be principals of schools, there may be persons who are responsible for what our curricula would look like. And I sometimes ask myself if these people understand the mission, if they understand that self has got to go and they have to be part of a mandate that trains our children that our culture is important. I get about it because I believe a lot of people do not believe in it. So then there's an identity crisis, and
Okay.
we have difficulty pushing forward.
All right, I have to let Corey and Peter in here. Corey?
Season of Emancipation. I'm happy that there's an extension now from April 14th down until the ending of August. I think that Barbadians should take the opportunity to be educated as to what emancipation means to them. To me, emancipation is not just freedom of self, but freedom of mind as well. I believe that there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of mental slavery. I know that's a cliche, but it is actually real. Mental slavery,
Indeed.
going back to the hairstyles and stuff like that. People still having issues with
Exactly.
persons with hairstyles and everything. That, in my
Exactly.
opinion, is still a level of mental slavery that is still being imposed. And I believe that we have a lot of work to do, as Mr. Grant indicated. It's a long journey. The journey has just begun, and I think that as time goes on, I would try to give as much input as I can from where I stand, and hopefully it will grow in years to come. And I hope that
Okay.
Barbadians would come out to the activities and actually, even if they don't know, to actually just go and listen, understand, and try to be educated.
Okay, Peter, to you quickly before we wrap up.
Yes, in all that we do, I want to see a lot more of our activities being decentralized. Um, very too often, everything happens in the Bridgetown area. Why not? Let's package an element of NIFTA and take it to Church Village in St. Philip, to Checker Hall in St. Lucie, to Belle Plaine in St. Andrew, to Gall Hill in St. John. I think that is the way how we will continue to mobilize our citizens and to make them aware about our season of emancipation and all of what the culture has to offer. So that's the level that I would want to see these activities taken right into the heart of the communities.
Okay, and I agree with you there, because we need to be able to learn from each other and take things into spaces. I remember the other day when Dale Marshall opened the new community center in St. John, he reminded, you know, that there's still people living in rural parishes and they too have a lot to offer. And that space that they created another space for the arts to grow and to thrive, because they've set up a gallery space, you know, that the residents can bring their craft and their artwork and find that entrepreneurial avenue. So that too is a part of our culture, because remember, we're people who were accustomed to working for ourselves after we worked on the plantation, you know, whether it be hawking fruits and vegetables, what have you, or doing skills and manual labor with our hands, we found a way to get it done. And that's a part of our culture we should not divorce from. I want to thank you all for some very good and insightful conversation this evening. I'm sure that our viewers are happy to have received it as well. So I want to thank Rodney Grant, the Program Advisor for the Office of Reparations and Economic Enfranchisement in the Prime Minister's Office, Jennifer Seeley, Founder and Artistic Director of Dancin Africa, Peter Skeete, the President of the Haynesville Youth Group, and Corey Bradshaw, one of the Director of Music with Israel Lovell Foundation. I want to thank you all for the contributions that you continue to make to culture. And in this season of emancipation, let's all come out and commemorate and celebrate. This has been The People's Business. I'm Wendy Burke. It was a pleasure having all of you viewers this evening. Thank you once more.